Redesigning Red Riding Hood! So lately, I've been failing spectacularly in the great many areas of my professional career. So it's kind of distressing, a little disturbing, and very difficult to maintain motivation during these types of periods. So in order to kind of get myself out of this rut, maybe learn something new, and try to expand my skill set, I've decided to start a new project that I'm going to be filming and showing off, because a lot of the other things that I've been working on I can't really show. So hopefully this will be cool. I'm going to be redesigning the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood in the style of a Tokusatsu series. So if you're unfamiliar with Tokusatsu, it is a genre of live action Japanese shows where people dress up in costumes and suits of armor and beat the crap out of each other. If you've seen Power Rangers, you know what Tokusatsu is. So the goal here is to redesign Little Red Riding Hood in that universe. I'm going to be reimagining the Big Bad Wolf, and I know it's not the Big Bad Wolf, but come on, it really feels like the Big Bad Wolf as sort of a Tokusatsu villain with like giant armor pieces and exaggerated proportions, and then Little Red Riding Hood as Red Rider. So taking a lot of inspiration from the Kamen Rider series, where you have an individual hero who transforms to fight off bad guys. Usually Kamen Riders are themed, like the design has a theme, like an insect or an animal or something like that. But for Red Rider, I'm just gonna make a cool looking suit of armor for her. So that's the intent. The goal here is to take an idea from concept art to digital sculpting to 3D modeling for animation, and then maybe doing a little animated fight scene with the two of them. So, but once I have the 3D model, I can also make sculptures and prints and toys of them. So there's like three purposes going on. First, I'm trying to learn how to up my concept art skills. 2, modeling and texturing and animating, and then 3, having a finished project that I can do animation with, but also do collectibles if I wanted to go that route. So it's going to be a long process. Not sure how long it's going to take or how many videos I'm going to be doing of this, but got to start somewhere. So here we go.
All right, starting with the wolf, because villains are much more fun to start with, I guess. Also, I had this idea of how I wanted the big bad wolf to look in my head. So, and on the right, I've just sketched in the height of Red Rider, how she would appear compared to the villain. And right now I'm working on just a basic silhouette, trying to get the proportions the way I want them. So I focus on that upside down Dorito shape, where the shoulders are much more wide than the hips and the waist. I think if someone was actually built like that, their spine would snap in half. So it's a good thing that this is going to be 3D modeled, and we're not going to try to stick an actor in a suit, because that'd just be really bad for their back. And of course, I have to extend everything. Since he's a wolf, I gave him those the hind leg thing, so you have that extra joint at the heel, which is an extended foot kind of thing, which should be a lot of fun to figure out how to rig and animate, because that reverse heel thing is always kind of tricky. This process is a lot of erasing and a lot of sketching and a lot of moving and a lot of sketching and then zooming and shrinking stuff. Sometimes Toku villains have gigantic heads with these ornate headdresses, but even when the head is massive, the faces are always pretty small in comparison to the rest of the silhouette. So I wanted to make sure that I kept the head at a reasonable size, kind of shrunk it a bunch of times. The arms are egregious. They're just way too big. Like if this wolf was actually a thing that you had to figure out how to make, the arms would just fall off because of their mass. Like even building up the biceps and the musculature, I still think, as soon as he swung that arm, it would just fly off. But I'm going for oversized proportions because Tokusatsu villains tend to be over the top, and the more successful monster designs I feel are the ones that really push things. So I'm trying to push it as far as I can, at least with the sketch, the initial idea, just getting it down quick and dirty. And I always like my villains to have a little bit of an aggressive hunch, so his posture is really fucked up and he's leaning forward quite aggressively. So here I'm just going back through, I turned off the initial sketch layer and now I'm going back with some darker lines to kind of clean things up. I'm going to do another round of cleanup, which I won't do a time lapse for, at least for the line art part, because it's going to take a long time. But I will do a time lapse of the coloring bit so you can watch that. And I think I'm going to do like another talky subject thing instead of just talking about, oh, this is how I put down the colors, because the coloring stuff is pretty mechanical. You just kind of sit and you do it. So the initial design and the sketch and carving out these lines, there's a lot more thought process to this part, trying to get the forms and the proportions correct. I spend a lot of time on the face because I feel like once you get the face locked in, the rest of the body kind of falls into place. So I'm adding a lot of wrinkles and veiny things and stuff like that because I'm kind of going for a mechanical horror feel to the wolf. And I feel like adding those wrinkly details, well, one, it's a lot of fun, but it catches the light in interesting ways. So if you light this character with a lot of shadows, the extra wrinkles will kind of catch those highlights and bring something out and be kind of spooky. So also veins are cool on a villain. It makes those armor pieces feel more like a organic carapace kind of, rather than just armor that you slap on a meaty body. So this is about 2 hours of footage that I'm condensing down into 10 minutes, and there are a lot of pauses. You can see there are a couple of pauses where I'm just not doing anything. Those moments I'm either looking up some musculature or looking up references for different shapes and things like that. So this process is a lot more fussy than it really should be. But some of the armor forms I'm deliberately trying to follow the way the muscle lines would flow, the way they wrap around the thighs in that way, but that's not always the case. And here I'm trying to figure out how many toes the wolf should have, and drawing a nice little overhead shot for myself. Since I'm going to be modeling this stuff later, it's helpful to kind of, if I was really fastidious about this, I would do like a proper turnaround from like the front, the profiles, and the back. But I'm kind of impatient, so I'm just gonna, once I finish this paint over, I'm gonna go back and do another cleanup round and color that. So really my initial instinct was to just go from this point and right into sculpting, but I was like, no, let's do some proper concept art. So the next part was me cleaning this up and getting a nice clean line art version and then coloring it. So you'll get to see the color part, not the line art part, because that's just tracing again. You draw these things like 3 or 4 times. And I did change a lot of these details in the line art, like the wrist cuff Here it looks like it's two pieces, but in the final version it's more one piece. So I was a lot more fussy with the line work. Sometimes I feel like the sketches feel much more accurate to the look I'm going for, even though there's less information because the lines are so sketchy and just not as confident. But I don't know, sometimes I feel the sketches are better. So here I'm trying to figure out the shoulders because as I initially did it, it just looked like it would be another piece of armor. But I wanted to make the silhouette of this character a little bit more menacing, so I wanted to add more stuff to the top to further push out those shoulders. So I kind of sketched in some massive pads, and I'm going to go back and detail that stuff. I kind of skimped out on the detailing for the left arm and the right leg because those are covered, but it's going to be basically symmetrical, so if I work up the detail on one side, the other side should be pretty much the same kind of thing. More veins, more evil veins, evil Tokusatsu veins. And here I'm building up that shoulder piece, giving it a giant big spike on it, and then a little bit of a thing that wraps around. And then I put that on a separate layer so that I could turn off the shoulder if I wanted to, just to see what's underneath, because I'm going to model that, so it's helpful to figure out where all that stuff is going. Okay, here I'm just adding some basic shadows just to give myself an idea of the dimensions of everything, like what parts are flat, what parts are rounded a little bit more, where the shadows might fall. It's not completely accurate, but this is just to give myself some more information when it comes time to modeling it. So you know, it's down and dirty, quick shading, not fully rendered. And yeah, that was actually the quickest part of this whole thing. And there you go. This is the design for the wolf.
And there you have it, an oversized mecha wolf mecha, or something like that. I'm going to clean up this design, do a clean piece of line art, and then color it. I'm not going to record the line art process because watching me draw something for yet a fifth time will be pretty boring. And for the coloring process, I'm going to do a time-lapse thing where I talk about an art topic and then run the time-lapse over it. So coloring is pretty mechanical. If any of you want a more in-depth look at the coloring process, I can record. I have the footage, so I can do a longer take of that and then go through that process. But I don't know. To me, it's pretty boring. So there you go. Next time, I'll be cleaning up this line art and coloring it and talking about art and stuff. All right, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this series. It's going to be interesting. I hope it works out. All right, thanks. Bye.